Please rewind this cassette.
All right, we're here to talk about the new Scooby-Doo show, Velma. It's singular because the Scooby-Doo gang doesn't exist. Well, some versions of the characters exist in it. We're going to mostly talk about Mindy Kaling here and the whole premise of the self-insert character, which is a common thread that I've been seeing with a lot of writers lately. Obviously, this isn't new. Writers have done this for decades, but it's becoming more apparent in recent media, and beyond that there's this delusional element with it, or borderline subterfuge. Maybe they're doing this stuff intentionally to raise controversy. So there's a lot to break down here, and get ready for this whole narrative to play out over the coming months as the show premieres next year on HBO Max. So, first thing I have up here, talk about Mindy's career. So, if you don't know, Mindy Kaling was made famous on The Office. She had the show The Mindy Project, which was canceled. And she's pretty much had no success in film or television outside of The Office, like many of the cast members. That's not a criticism towards her. It just is what it is. I'd like to say up front, though, I actually think she's a pretty talented actress. I liked her character on The Office, and I know she contributed to the writing of that show with BJ Novak. So that needs to be pointed out that she has done good things in the past. Velma being gay or bisexual is the next thing I have on here. So this one piece that's been going around before you even go into the race swapping is the fact that Velma is gay now. And the big thing that they keep pushing is fans have wanted this for decades. This has been perpetuated for a long time that Velma's been a closeted lesbian, and it's in the original show. And thank God representation, we finally got Velma. So first off, this isn't true. Velma was not a lesbian in Scooby Doo. Where Are You? The reason that a lot of this all started was basically people would get high back in the day, or maybe you had these conversations with your friends as teenagers, like, "Hey man, Scooby and Shaggy, what's in the Scooby snacks? I bet it makes them high." Or I bet Freddie and Daphne go off and have sex. And then it was because Velma never had a boyfriend or was never seen with a guy. The assumption was is that she was a lesbian. It also had something to do with the way she looked, that she was a little frumpy, or that she had the glasses and always wore a sweater. Kind of all these stereotypes that people projected onto the characters that really had nothing to do with the show and its creation. Beyond that, though, in many iterations of Scooby Doo, Velma's been attracted to men. She's either dated characters or had flings with characters in Scooby Doo movies and television shows. Recently, she dated Shaggy in Mystery Inc. So I guess you could say Velma's bisexual, pansexual, whatever the hell you want to say she is. But the representation part about it, there seems to be this thing that they're saying that all these gay people are celebrating this. So do you think when gay people like go out to the club, and they're dancing and everything, they're like, "Hey man, we got Velma. She's part of the team now." As if that means anything to, gay culture and the gay community, whether or not they get a fictional character, Velma Dinkley, to represent them. That seems pretty stupid. The premise of an adult Scooby Doo show. So, this is probably the best idea here conceptually, right? So, the idea is that they actually deal with real serial killers, real murder, real gore, and you can see this in the trailer for the show. And that's definitely something that I think they could have done with Scooby Doo for a long time. So, that part's cool. I don't like the approach they're taking with it. It has me worried, in particular with everything Warner Brothers has been doing for the most part has not been very good of late, so that's fearful. Next, race swapping for an insert gimmick and being meta to get away with it. So essentially what this means is the self-insert. So a lot of people think that Ray represents Kathleen Kennedy and femininity that was lacking to her as a strong suit in the Star Wars universe. Or the She-Hulk writers recently pretty much going after trolls or 4chan bigots who are attacking their show. And the writers are legitimately just like saying this through dialogue through the character. It's not subtext, it's overt messaging. Like subtext would be you somehow tie it into a story and you don't really spill it out, but then when you watch the episode a second time, you go, "Oh, okay, you were doing something." Um, Mindy Kaling doesn't seem to understand why there's controversy around her being Velma. I'll tell you why it's controversial, Mindy, because I've seen interviews with, like, I have an article here where she even says, like, she's confused about the controversy with the race swapping. She says, "I think characters in this is so iconic, but in no way the gang is defined by their whiteness, except for Fred." Wait, so the only character in the group that's defined by their whiteness is the male leader, that's going to be voiced by Glenn Howerton, who's known for playing assholes. So I think we can tell where Freddy's character is gonna be going in this show, but you're saying that Freddy's defined by his whiteness, but Velma, Daphne, Shaggy aren't? That literally doesn't make any sense. She says, "So I was a little bit surprised, and I think most Indian American girls, when they see this skeptical, hardworking, kind of underappreciated character, can identify with her." So Indian American girls are naturally skeptical and underappreciated, apparently, is what she is saying. So Mindy, you didn't just race swap Velma. This is the issue. This is why this is cringe. This is why this is bringing up controversy. You didn't race swap the character and take away her lack of inherent whiteness. You literally made the character you. You might as well have called the show Mindy. She looks like you, she has your voice, and you've eliminated Scooby Doo, the character that the entire franchise was based on and was built around, that and the gang, to make a show about you playing dress up as Velma and just being yourself as Velma. A lot of us do see ourselves in these characters. We do relate to them. And maybe that's why when you go to a Comic Con or something, you put on a costume. Plenty of people go out as Halloween characters and they dress up as the Scooby Doo gang. That's all perfectly fine. What you don't do is write and create an entire television show around you playing dress up as Velma. That's insane. Like, it's it's not the character anymore. It's just you being like, "Look, I'm Velma now." So then it's not Velma, it's a show about you, but you're using the IP because they gave it to you and they're allowing it. So they're gonna focus on the race swapping element because that's gonna be the narrative that plays out. It's the same thing that's happening with Little Mermaid and stuff. It's gonna be like, "You don't like this because you're a racist." No, I don't like you being this pretentious, self-indulgent, obtuse actress writer who can't see why it's crazy for you to take an iconic character and just make it you. I mean, literally, you just made the character yourself. If you can't see why people have a problem with that, that says more about you than it does fans of Scooby Doo. Um, Beyond that, the meta aspects, right? So you can just see in the trailer they're doing that Rick and Morty bullshit where it's like, we're self aware about being a television show. Not only that, we're self aware about the fans of television shows. Not only that, we're self aware about ourselves as writers being commented on by people who watch television shows. So the fact that you're acknowledging that you're just playing Velma and none of this is actually Scooby Doo is funny. And it's able to, like, cover everything up. It's like the invisibility cloak in Harry Potter. So a lot of television shows and movies have been doing this. This is a trend that Dan Harmon helped kick off. You could even go back to Joss Whedon. And I'm a fan of Dan Harmon. I like Community and stuff like that. But they missed the point. It's like the meta thing was always sort of done as a joke layered on top of an actual story and original characters that were more based off archetypes as opposed to what you're doing, which is just saying, well, if I acknowledge this thing, that means it's okay and it's not bad. That's not clever. That's not a way to get around the issues that clearly you couldn't solve. That once again, you just wanted to play Velma and dress up. And it just like adds fuel to the fire of people who are attacking everything that's coming out and saying it's too woke and blah, blah, blah. Even though I'm tired of that conversation too. The Scooby Doo formula. Okay, so Scooby Doo never works when the gang isn't together. I've watched every Scooby Doo show and movie, and the dark times of Scooby-Doo is when it was, like, Scrappy and Scooby and Shaggy and Daphne for the most part, and then they would, like, interchange characters. Even beyond that, though, like, anytime that you try to focus on a single character in the Scooby-Doo franchise or you split the gang up and you don't play off all of the dynamics of every piece of that, those are always the weakest Scooby-Doo things. The best shows, the best movies, the stuff that works, the stuff that builds a fan base always has the gang together, going with the classic formula of they go to solve mysteries. The character interactions is where a lot of the tension comes from. It's like if you made a Ninja Turtles movie and it was just Raphael and you just followed him. That would be interesting. I'm not saying Raphael's a bad character, but he's made more interesting by the way he plays off everyone else. Velma's no different. Velma's a great character, but she's great as a piece of the whole. When you just focus everything on her, well, that just makes her more generic. It's just about a girl who solves mysteries and is an Indian lesbian, as if that gives her characterization. And Black Shaggy, which I actually think's great. That could be amazing. Yeah, and then yeah, the Freddy will be an asshole thing. So she mentions Freddy's inherent whiteness. Glenn Howerton. This really makes me worried Freddy's going to be problematic and be not a villain per se, but the ignorant character of the group. Maybe they'll make him lovable. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. The point of why media is dying. Now, all media isn't dying. Clearly, there's new media and there's online media that's part of that, and that stuff isn't going anywhere. But the fact that they're spending money on these shows and movies, and it's just for these writers that are really not, I think, qualified to be doing a lot of these things, just inserting themselves into it. And then when you criticize it, it just falls back on these non-answers. They don't actually address any of the issues directly. Mindy Kaling could have come out and said, "Hey, yeah, I just wanted to be Velma. This is self-indulgent. It is kind of silly. Uh, I get why people would have an issue with that. Yeah, it's pretty stupid. We made a Scooby-Doo show without Scooby-Doo, but hey, give us a chance." Instead, she's like, "I don't understand. I don't know why anybody would do this. Blah 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 blah. I don't have anything to say." Um, all this bullshit. Just wait. It's going to be next year. When the show comes out and it's going to get negative attention, they're immediately going to say it's because of racism. Like 100%. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be because it's because they race swapped her, and that's what all the outlets are going to say. Like, "Oh, you have a problem with Brown Velma? Well, you can just delete me off Facebook if you feel that way." Because all the fucking normies are going to jump on this to be like, "Look how not racist I am. I'm just a perfect little white person and I don't hate anybody." They didn't do any fucking research past just seeing an article headline that said that everybody's racist. Fucking assholes. Yeah, so, I mean, the self-insert, though, that's what I really wanted to make this about, because this is a prime example of the self-insert. We've seen a lot of self-insert characters recently, or there's the literally me characters for incels and men. Ryan Gosling has the whole fucking genre dedicated to this. He's pretty much boosted his career with it. And I dig that. I'm fine with that, especially when it's an original work. If you want to make something that's yours and you make it about you, which you should probably do with creative writing and tell personal stories or things that you've experienced anecdotally that reinforce things so you're coming from a place of truth and honesty, I think that's probably the right way to go. It's when you start fucking with IPs that have decade long fan bases, and when you start messing with IPs that have certain established continuities and formulas that become the issue, because it makes me think you don't have a love for the character. It makes me think you don't have a love for the material. You're like, "I love Velma. I relate to her. I love Scooby Doo." I think you like it in shallow ways. I think you like it on a very surface level way, and you're opportunistic about it. Do I think you actually love the Scooby Doo mythology or you love all the different shows and incarnations? No, I don't believe that. I don't think that for a second. I think you just think, well, Velma's really popular, and maybe we can get some people to watch this by naming the show after her and all that crap and putting on HBO. If your gimmick is that it's more adult and there's a serial killer, you could lean on that and that would be fine. But just from the trailer, it looked really bad. Like just the writing and the comedy, it wasn't funny. I know comedy's subjective, but people who always say that are people that aren't naturally funny. So they like to say that because they can't tell jokes and they don't have a good sense of humor. So they're like, "Hey, it's subjective." It's like, well, kinda, but not totally. Actually, if you can kind of break down why something doesn't work comedically, and there's some good examples here in the Velma trailer of just the killer in the house thing, very obvious. And then the guy's there and she's like, "Oh, you're in the house? Like, where's the joke except for the fact that Velma's aware that it's a trope from movies and shows, a stranger calling, and she's acknowledging it, and then he's in the house. Like, there's no punchline to that. Um, it just is kind of very obvious what it's doing, which I hope isn't like indicative of the entire show, but it probably will be, which has me really worried in general. Um, I'm not trying to attack Mindy Kaling. I really don't have any personal issues with her, and I don't think she's been as um stupid in interviews as other people have, or have gone crazy on Twitter as other people have when it comes to defending something after it gets criticism. She's actually handled it pretty well. So I respect her in that regard, but I have to say, once again, you literally made this whole show so you could like cosplay Velma animation and just be yourself. And then you're like, well, fuck it. If I'm going to do that, let's change Shaggy. Let's get rid of Scooby. Let's keep Freddy white because I don't care about him because he doesn't mean anything to me as a character. It's really obvious who you focused on and who you wanted this to be about. So yeah, Velma was not a lesbian throughout all the incarnations of Scooby-Doo. The race swapping thing isn't necessarily the issue. It's the fact that you swapped Velma into you is the issue. That's the problem, not the race. That the fact that you, the show once again could just be called Mindy. And if you made that show, nobody would watch it. So you made it Velma. So somebody would click on it because of the IP that you had nothing to do with creating. And that's why people are going to be mad. And that's why the cycle is going to continue. And that's why stupid Hollywood, if they don't catch on, are going to slowly lose the loyalty to these franchises. Because eventually people are just going to give up. If you're not giving people even like a small increment of what they want, or it doesn't seem like you're a hardcore fan or that you study the stuff that you're trying to adapt, then yeah, I'm not going to watch your show that's about you that you got on HBO. It's no different from watching somebody's YouTube channel. Huh. Anyway, um, yeah, that's all the notes I got. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's a crucial, important piece of information. Meta humor fucking sucks. I'm over it. Tired of everybody trying to do that. No Scooby Doo in a Scooby Doo show again. Pretty silly. And yeah, the trailer didn't give me any confidence about this being any good. I hope I'm wrong, but even if it is good, it's never going to be a Scooby Doo show in my eyes because of the fact that it's not. Anyway, new episode of the podcast Cinema Chads coming this week. So look out for that. We're going to be doing another Halloween movie. And hopefully we get some big guests on there soon. I've been talking to some people on Twitter who have shown interest in coming on the show. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you everyone watching this video. And tell me what you thought about the Velma trailer down in the comments and what you think about this whole self-inserting yourself into characters, these writers that are basically using this as a way to shield themselves or deal with their insecurities. They're using, because Mindy has no influence, she's using a famous character like Velma to speak for her to get people to listen. And I'm interested, where's this going and what do you guys think about it?